I think I've missed maybe once out of the last 8, 9 months of doing this. Um, I'll be honest with you, we're coming to the end of the year. You know, again, how the hell did that happen so fast? Yeah, this is the start of December, and who could believe it? Um, we have a couple weeks left in this year, and I tend to, in the month of December, I use it as a time to reflect. I use it as a time to reflect about the business. I tend to reflect about when I've worked in corporate, about where I am and how I'm moving forward. Am I hitting the goals that I want to hit? Is my career going in a direction I want it to go in? And I ask myself some very poignant questions. Typically, especially when I worked in the corporate world, um, I use this as a time to make a determination: was I going to make a move in the new year? And there's a bunch of things that I would look at, um, you know, from a standpoint of what criteria that would be. The first thing I would look at is I would look at kind of what the economy is doing. I'd look at unemployment, and I would look at, okay, how's the economic picture looking? Are we about to go into recession? Are people laying off, are companies laying people off wholesalely? And understand there are opportunities when there are layoffs going on. They could be laying off people in one door and pushing them out one door and then hiring them in and bringing them in the other door. And I've seen this in my career. It's quite normal. Sometimes it has to do with the right skill set. The business has changed, and that skill set is not needed, or they need more people with a certain skill, or they still need that person with a certain skill, and they're trying to get that in. But by and large, if I see that there are signs of a recession coming within the next three to 6 months, I may think second. I may have a second thought about, hey, jumping ship and looking for something else. Again, you may not know what's happening, or this may happen. And a good example is 9/11. 9/11 happened, and everything changed on a dime. Uh, there were more clear signs in '08. With things kind of teetering and doing things. Um, but again, COVID, another example, where things were fine, going good, and then COVID hit, we were on lockdown, and all of a sudden, people are out of work again. So again, in that regard, I would always kind of look at what the economics are doing, and kind of what's going on in industry, what may be going on in the next 3 to 6 months, and to make a decision then whether or not I'm going to make it a move. The other thing I'm going to look at is, do I still have opportunity here? Do I still have an opportunity to move forward and grow in my career? Or am I going to be stuck? Is there somebody in the way of me getting promoted? And is there somebody in that person's way to getting promoted? Because understanding they may not at some point be able to pay me more. They may not be able to give me the bonuses that I'm looking for. They may not be able to give me the challenges that I'm looking for in my career. So in that case, I have to go and I have to make a decision. So if the economic part of it is going okay, and it looks like the economy is chugging along, and there's good opportunities, unemployment's on the low side, uh, I may decide, I might want to go make a move. Um, I take into account, am I happy where I work? Do I enjoy what I do? Do I enjoy who I work with and who I work for? And a lot of times, if I don't like what I do, and I don't like the company, and I don't align with the values and stuff, that may be the quicker answer of saying, hey, I need to make a move sooner than later. Even if advancement is not there, if I work for a company that I like and that they're trying to work with me and they're trying to develop me and they're trying to do the right things, I might be more inclined to stay. But if I don't like the company and I don't like what I do, then why am I sticking around? I'm not putting tools in my toolbox. I'm not being valued for what I do. And then, hey, I should be making a change. Now I get it. Making change is difficult. We are not wired for it. The path of least resistance is kind of what most people operate on. But the other thing that I will look at in making a decision on whether or not I'm going to be actively looking for a new opportunity is I'm going to look at specifically my salary. I'm going to look at what I'm being paid. I'm going to look at what I could get on the open market. I'm going to take into account, am I being paid comparable to other people that are doing the same thing? Or am I being underpaid? And if I notice that, hey, I'm getting 10,000 less than the person sitting next to me and I got more experience, I'd start looking real fast. So there are some of the criteria that I would kind of go through, and honestly, I would start to look at from a standpoint of, it's December. Come the new year, am I going to start that process? Now, here's the truth. Going out into the job market is not easy. It takes work. It takes time. And again, sometimes people kind of fall into it. And most of the time, the people who fall into it have good networks and they've been kind of keeping the irons in the fire on a regular basis. And that's what you really ideally want to do, is have irons in the fire, people that you can talk to and say, hey, are you hearing anything? Now, being it is the end of the year, this is what I would do is I would start to formulate plans. If you have not updated your resume in a long time and you haven't kept it up to date with your current job and how that job has morphed, if you have not put your promotions in that you've had in this job, you need to get your act together. You need to put your resume together. And again, a lot of times what happens is we put the wrong things in continually. I see it every single day. And I see this actually with a lot of people who've had their resumes done by so-called professionals who, what I call, tart up a resume. They clean it up, they check for grammatical errors, they make it read kind of nice, but the content of what's in there is fluff. You're not fooling anybody. It's not the things that get you noticed. And the problem is these people don't know what they are doing, and they don't know that, oh, these are the things that get them noticed. They're doing the best that they can. They just don't have the tools in their toolbox. And again, there's some great people out there. They do some great work. But again, you kind of remember this. You get what you pay for. So if you're spending $100 on your resume to get it fixed and written, you're going to get a $100 resume. If you are spending over $1,000 on a resume, I'm going to tell you 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a product that you're going to walk away with, and it's going to be fantastic. The other thing is you need to have some sort of strategy. You need to figure out how you're going to go to market. What are the companies you're going to go after? What are your values? What are the things that get you up in the morning? And I'm going to tell you, so many times what we do is just the opposite. We take what is given to us. And if you take what's given to you, it's a recipe for you not being happy. You may get lucky, but more times than not, you'll be unhappy because somewhere along the line, there is a misalignment of values and a misalignment of what you want to truly do. The other thing that you need to do, and it's one of the things, and one of the reasons I'm doing, the 100 interview question videos, is you need to have your interview skills down. You need to have them down because you only get one shot. Here's the truth. The truth is this. Companies get so many resumes for jobs, and some of them are from people who are unqualified, but they still have to sift through them. And on top of that, they'll get people that are qualified for the job, and they'll get plenty of them. The internet has made that quite easy to do. And what'll happen is this. They may get 100, 200, 300 resumes. Now, they may get through the first 20 or 30 resumes that they get in. And after that, they probably have enough candidates that'll work. Maybe it'll take 50. So if there's 300 resumes that have been submitted into a position and it's been sitting out there for a while, you're going to have to do a little hustling to get your resume on top of the pile. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what's going to happen is this, and this is what happens in HR departments and in recruiting departments all over the country. They get your resume, they look at it, they spend about 6 seconds on it, and they make a determination, should I read further? And if there's nothing that they see here that jumps out at them and says, hey, this person may have the skills, read further down, they're going to put it to the side and say, maybe not. And in that, the reason I say they might go through 50 resumes is because of what I said earlier. That they may have a situation where there's people that are unqualified. But the truth of the matter is this. After they go through the 50 resumes, they'll get about 6 candidates that they feel confident in. They feel confident that that person can do the job. And congratulations. They may have one position open, but all 6 at this point have that job. Now comes the interview point. That point of the process where you're interviewing. This is the part where you talk yourself out of the job. And somebody talks themselves into the job. Why not be the person who talks themselves into the job? But it takes work. It takes practice. Practice on how you're going to answer questions. Practice on how you're going to dress, how you are going to greet people. When the interview starts, I will tell you this. People always get it wrong. They always put their energy in the wrong person and not necessarily on a person that could make the biggest impact. And I will tell you this. When I was doing recruiting and I ran recruiting for $1 billion company, we had a process that was down. And our process was this. People would come in and they would get greeted at the reception. Not only would they get greeted at the reception, they would be escorted, most of the time by my my assistant. So my admin person would walk the person from interviewer to interviewer. And then what would happen is this: the recruiter would have a time with them, the HR person would have a time with them, the manager, some of the staff. And then after that person left, we'd all get together. Sometimes I was in the room, most of the time it's just my recruiter. But in that room was the receptionist that they might have been rude to and snippy and short with, my admin assistant, who escorted them from interview to interview and periodically said, "Oh, how are things going?" All the people that were on the interview schedule, and everyone had a say. And what we were looking for is red flags. And what's going to happen is this: they're going to make a determination. So you need to nail your interview. The other thing is this: if you are not one of the first 50 people in there, and it may actually be less, if you're not one of those first few people in the door, you're going to need to network. You're going to need to get your resume on top of the pile. And the way you do that is you network. You follow up. Follow up, follow through. It's the hallmark of a good leader. And again, you may say to yourself, I don't want to be a nuisance to them. They're busy. I don't want them to think I'm desperate. And the truth of the matter is you're calling them up and you're networking with them, not because you're desperate, but you are convinced and you're positive that you can do this job. So with that said, you need to get your networking skills down. And I'm going to tell you, most people suck at it. And if they don't suck at it, they don't like doing it, and they avoid it like the plague. But the truth of the matter is that's the quickest way you'll get that next position. The other thing is when it comes to offers, most people screw that up. Somewhere along the line, they've told them a number that is below what they're even willing to pay. And here's the truth. If you tell them a number and it's a low number, they're going to target the low number before anything. And it's going to make your job a lot harder to get up the ladder, pay-wise. Now, you may live in a place where they have to give pay ranges. You need to be up to date. You need to know what those ranges are. So be knowledgeable about what your value is in the marketplace. And if they don't put a salary range there, you're going to have to do some more research. Because you need to have tools and you need to have weapons to come to battle when you negotiate your salary. Because you want to make sure that you're being realistic. But you also want to hold them to account as well. And then the other thing is this: so many people miss this point, is the first 90 days are probably one of the key times in your employment, and it sets the tone on how you are going to do when you're in that company. And I will tell you, so many people miss the boat. There's a real opportunity for them to be able to do something. and actually point their career in the right direction. And I tell you, I work with people all the time on figuring out what those first 90 days should look like. And part of it is taking the bull by its horns and taking control of your career, taking control of the position that you have just landed in, and making sure that you are aligned with your boss, with your stakeholders, and that you are truly delivering what they need you to deliver. Because sometimes what happens is this: they say they need X when they really need Y. Get that? They said they needed X, but what they really need is Y. Because they haven't necessarily been honest with themselves on what their needs are, or clearly know what they need, or the business changed. But if you don't start asking the questions and aligning yourself in a way that you are a solution provider instead of someone that just shrugs their shoulders, I wasn't hired for this, you're going to end up, they're going to make determinations about who you are as an employee, and that is going to affect the rest of your time working for that company. Unless you do some amazing things that blow them out of the water afterwards, they're going to have an opinion on how far you're going to go. So this has been the working hour. I hope that this has been helpful. If you need some help in some of these things that I've talked about today, let's do this. Let's go and let's book a meeting. Okay, it just popped up over on the side here. Just scan that QR code there, and you can book a free informational meeting. And I'll tell you how I do this with my clients and how I've made them successful at each stage. But before you do any of that stuff, you need to start to take stock in how this year went and how you want next year to go. Have a great day, and I will see you next week.